Hello, Teklians. We're back for our third episode of Teklian Live. I'm Risket. Here's Joe. What are we talking about this week, Joe?
I'm thinking Stargate. How does that sound?
That sounds fantastic. Allons-y.
Let's do it.
Completely wrong show, but allons-y. So Stargate Universe aired in October 2009. It follows after the events of SG-1 and SG-A. The whole mission trying to dial the 9th chevron on the gate. In SG-1, there was everything was involving 7 chevron addresses. Then you learn about an 8 chevron address, which takes you to another galaxy. They were trying to figure out every Stargate has 9 chevrons on it. So they're trying to figure out why there's now 9 chevrons on there.
Yeah, and what I thought was particularly cool about the chevrons, especially with the 9th chevron, was for all the previous addresses, whether it's 7 or 8, that final chevron was the point of origin. It was the symbol that represented the planet that they were on. But for the 9th chevron, it was more of a code. It had nothing to do with location in space. It used the Earth's point of origin no matter where you were. And I thought that was just a little bit interesting.
Yeah, so in the case of the 9th chevron, it's like it really didn't matter. I mean, that was the whole issue, why they had to bring Eli into it and everything. So they announced that it was going to be canceled before it came back for its second half of the season. Some of the reasons why people didn't like the show is some people said it was too dark compared to SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis. Said there was not enough humor in it, not enough exploration or adventure. Not enough aliens. Some people said that not much happened. It was just the same stuff over and over again. It was always the same people on the ship. They said it was too depressing, too much like Battlestar Galactica, which I can see. I mean, it was trying to run constantly on the run. You're stranded on a ship, trying to escape and aiming for this goal that nobody even knows if you can reach it, which I can see the similarities, but I also really liked Battlestar Galactica, so I didn't really mind that too much.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, have you been watching?
I'm near the end of the second season of Battlestar Galactica. I was very late jumping on that bandwagon, but I'm liking it a lot. But I loved SGU. I know it was different, but I loved it.
Yeah, and they even said that going into it. I mean, they said that this was going to be different than
Anything we've
SG-1,
seen.
and yeah, SG-1 that it was on for 10 years. Stargate Atlantis, that was another 5 years. You had 15 years of basically the same formula. People going out, usually in a group of 4 to 5 or 6, whatever group of people.
And SG-1 was, that was 10 seasons, but I mean, there were 2 movies that followed that up. I think it was a total of like 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
That had a really good run.
But I mean, after so long of that, what else would they have done with Stargate Universe?
Yeah. Well, I think also another thing people didn't like about Stargate Universe was how long it took to get things going. While I personally loved the character development, it seemed like the majority of the first season was character development, and I think that might have been what threw a lot of people off. They didn't want to wait to get to know these characters in such a deep level. They wanted things to just start happening. They were too used. The people that were coming in to watch Stargate Universe, the people that watched SG-1 and SG-A, and they were very used to the format of that show, and that's what they were looking for in this show. And when it was a complete different style of show, I think that kind of turned them off.
I've heard a lot of people say that there was too much drama, too much conflict between the characters, and before it even started, we were told it was going to be darker than anything we'd seen before on Stargate. We were told that it was going to be more about the people on the ship. I mean, you take these people who were put together for one reason and then throw them on the complete opposite side of the universe, and now they're somewhere that none of them were trained for, none of them planned on it, nobody was prepared for it. They were the wrong people, basically, for literally everything. Everything that about their situation, they were the wrong people for it. And there's going to be conflict between people. I thought the issues that they had, I mean, it was very different, but it was, I thought, kind of realistic,
That's just what I was going to say is, despite the unrealistic science fiction part to the show, everything was really realistic. I mean, the show did a really good job of actually making the characters feel real. The character development was so deep that every character felt real to me. Every character, like, they were just had a sense of realism to them.
Yeah, and even like Dr. Rush, the beginning. Like, I mean, he was one of those people that he was very frustrating because he was like,
You love to hate him.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
just, yeah,
And then there was the episode when you actually get to learn more about him and his history and everything, and it's like you get a better understanding about him, but you still love that you still hate him.
exactly. Now, one thing I wanted to mention was basically the premise for the show was for people who have never watched it, they're stuck on a planet trying to dial the ninth chevron, which we talked about. And when they dial it, it brings them to a ship called Destiny that is failing life support. They're stuck there. They don't have enough power to dial back to Earth. Even when they finally charge Destiny fully charged, it can't dial Earth. And that's basically the premise of the show is them trying to get back to Earth, stuck on this ship millions and millions of light years from Earth.
That was launched like what, millions of years before, hundreds of thousands. What was it? I can't remember the
Millions.
exact number. Millions.
That was actually a small bit that bothered me because when they were referring in the later seasons of Stargate SG-1 to the Ori and how the Ori and the Ancients were once the same, like Alterans, and then the Ancients split and came here, they were talking about that as happening hundreds of thousands of years ago. But then they're talking about Destiny being launched millions of years ago, but they weren't even in the Milky Way galaxy at that time. But they're saying that's where the Destiny was launched from. So that was just a little inconsistency that bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, I was kind of confused about that stuff. I was actually wanting to go back and watch some certain episodes of SG1 and SGA just because there was some things that I didn't think were lining up, and I know there's some websites that actually have like a timeline and everything, basically trying to piece together little bits and pieces of things that we've learned throughout all the shows.
That's actually what was bothering me. Was it never really bothered me before. I didn't really think much of it, but then I was going back and I was trying to write like a fan fiction type origin story just for fun. And then I was like, wait a minute. I was looking up at the timelines of things, and I'm like, this doesn't match up.
Yeah, because there was also, wasn't there? It's been a long time since I've seen it. In when they found the woman in the ice in Antarctica. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, she was put in the ice after Atlantis had been evacuated and the ancients had gone back to Earth, I believe. But before the ancients had ascended, I think. I'm not 100% positive though. I think that's supposedly what the story was for her, but the time that at how old they said she was didn't line up or something like that.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've.
Yeah, small inconsistencies though like that are bound to happen once in a while with a show with the scope that Stargate has. I mean,
I don't think that everyone involved can even keep track of the storyline that they've all.
especially when sometimes like it's even forgotten that they mention a certain time period or reference a time just in one little line in like a show, and people go back and watch that though and they see that one little line, they're like, oh, then like 4 years later they made this episode and it didn't match up. It's they can't always keep on top of those with such a big show that spans over such a long amount of time.
I was very fascinated. I was really into the show. I mean, I know that it did take a while for big major action sequences to really kick in, but I mean, just the whole nature of it. It was you have no idea where you are. You know nothing about. Nobody even knew that this thing existed, and now you got to figure out how to use it. I mean, it's a dying ship that's been out there for a ridiculous amount of time, just running on autopilot the entire time, being attacked by other aliens who are trying to learn from it. And
Not only that, but one thing I really liked too was even once they started adding that action in, they had the other aliens attacking. It was still a lot of they still focused more on the relationships between them and the aliens, the thoughts that they had, and the reactions to the aliens and the actual firefights. You know?
yeah, I think people were expecting them to land on this ship, and then second episode they have control, and now they're like, oh well, we don't know where we are, so let's go explore. I
Yeah,
don't,
and
I don't think that's realistic.
no, and the way they went with the show, while maybe some people didn't like it, was a lot more realistic. Their first concern was taking care of each other, taking care of the ship, finding a means to survive, and it wasn't about exploring. Especially the fact that the ship was kept moving. It's why would you explore when you don't even know if you're gonna be alive tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people said that the Dr. Rush and Colonel Young drama went on way too long.
Yeah, it did, and then they would make it seem like it went away for like 3 episodes or so, and then they'd bring it back, and they'd make like they wouldn't bring it up, and then they'd bring it back, and they did that into the second season a little bit. It was just that definitely did go on too long.
It did make those episodes when they worked together and get along. It made those like more exciting.
Yeah, to see them working together.
Yeah, I mean, you see them beating each other up, and he abandons Rush on a planet and leaves him behind for dead, and then it comes back and they're working together, and it's
And
like
then especially later on, you sometimes even see Rush. Young supporting Rush in some cases.
I think Colonel Young is probably my favorite leader of all of the every Stargate. Just the crap he went through, and you may have tried to kill him, but if you had a good idea, he was on your side.
Exactly, and also I liked Rush so much because you saw him break down, you saw him fall to his lowest point, and then you saw him come back up. I mean, it would be unrealistic to expect any leader to just be able to go in there and just be good all the time, just not have a low, just keep going. In his situation, I thought that was very realistic. That he was falling down, crashing down, second guessing himself.
Especially when the simulations, Destiny was running these battle simulations, and he kept having these visions of them, and he
When
didn't
he
know what
locked,
was real
yeah,
anymore. And
he locked himself in his room and just started drinking. It
yeah,
was just, it was just a very real reaction and something you would expect in that type of situation. He has the lives of these people on his hands, and they have no way to get home. He has no idea if they're going to survive tomorrow, if they're going to get attacked the next time they jump out of FTL.
he can't even sleep. I mean, I was just watching the final episode, the finale, actually, not that long ago, and throughout the episode, it's one issue after another, and he hasn't slept in days, and he keeps trying to go back to sleep, and every time he gets into his quarters and is about to get some rest, somebody radios him or knocks on his door, and there's a problem, and he just gets up and goes and takes care of it, and it's like even that far into it, and he still like does what he has to do. He's the one in charge, and he has every right to be.
Uh, Chloe, Chloe was one of the characters in the show. I heard a lot of complaints about people saying that like she was a useless character, she didn't contribute much.
I heard a
But
lot of that.
I think you got to remember again, sticking with the realism is you can't expect her to just jump into this ship. I mean, she's a civilian. She was just some daughter of a senator that happened to be on the planet at the time they had to evacuate to Destiny. She had no training. She wasn't prepared for this. I mean, what do people expect? The second episode in, her to be like a trained fighter, able to handle all the situation they're going through, handle the fact that she could die. It was
Exactly.
unrealistic expectations.
To me, she was Chloe and Eli. They were us. That's the way I see it. They were anybody watching the show is probably going to relate to one of them too. They were
I
the normal people, the regular everyday people that you probably already know, and that's this character is representing you. This is you if you're on that ship.
Exactly. And I did relate a lot to both of those characters, particularly Eli, because both of them. I mean, Eli, he was just there to help them get a lock on the Chevron. He wasn't supposed to go to Destiny. He had just been picked up the day before off of his front doorstep because of unlocking something in a video game. I mean,
Which I thought was brilliant. That
definitely.
was a brilliant way of starting the whole thing when General O'Neill showing up on your doorstep. You know,
Yeah. What are you
I
gonna do?
love the
Beam me?
whole exactly.
What are you gonna do? Beam me to your spaceship, and then he closes the door and he gets it beamed up. I thought that was pretty funny. I also thought it was pretty funny. What they did was they put the puzzle for the Stargate that they're having trouble figuring out into a video game, and he solved it to get to the next level in the video game. And I just thought his reaction was funny. He solves this huge complex problem nobody that Stargate Command had working for them to solve, and he gets disappointed because when he solves it, it sends him back to the beginning of the level. They didn't even have it lead anywhere in the game. I just thought that was a little bit humorous for his side because he's sitting there playing the game. He just solved this huge math problem and doesn't even give him anything.
Yeah, at least give him some extra lives.
Yeah.
Power up his weapons, whatever. It was hilarious though, because it's whatever that equation was, whatever it was he solved in there, had to have been insanely complex, and to be that disappointed that it just sends you to the beginning of the game, and now you got a general and a scientist showing up at your doorstep because you solved it. I think there was too much time in between sections of the show. I mean, they broke it up way too much, and I think that's what made it difficult for a lot of viewers. Plus, from what I remember, it started being aired on Fridays, and then they changed it.
Was it Fridays or did it start airing on Tuesdays? I thought it was they changed it from Tuesdays to Mondays.
Was it?
I can do a quick search. But
I know that at one point it was on a Friday. I think it had been on a Monday, a Friday, and a Thursday, maybe. Maybe not
Maybe.
Thursday.
I know they switched it to Monday at the end.
Yeah, and I think at that point, oh, that seemed to be like a death sentence on Sci-Fi. That when a show gets moved to Monday, its
They're just
ratings are
waiting for it to die so they can add more wrestling.
pretty much more wrestling and cooking.
Do they have cooking on Sci-Fi now?
Yeah.
Wrestling was a stretch, but I don't even see how they can fit cooking on there.
It's like some what is it? I haven't watched Sci-Fi in I don't since Stargate Universe was canceled. But it's some like you ever see that one cooking show? It was called what was it? It was like Moto something. I don't
No, I
exactly
don't.
what it was. They did crazy things. It was actually very interesting. I think it was on Food Network, but it was stuff where like they did things like use like liquid nitrogen and like like they basically had a whole like in-house science lab in their restaurant, and they did all kinds of crazy experiments, like all kinds of stuff where like everything was edible. They made a whole meal where it looked like it was like a cigar in an ashtray, but it was all food.
That actually
And
sounds
like,
pretty cool, though.
and they did something where they were experimenting with edible paper and flavored ink, where they actually printed paper that looked like sushi and they wrapped it around rice and it was actually edible, but they printed the flavor basically.
I didn't even know that was possible.
I think the cooking show that they have on Sci-Fi is similar to that. It's something like that where they do like crazy, like sciencey experiments, and because somehow that's science fiction. Which I mean, you could argue that the new spelling of sci-fi doesn't have anything to do with science fiction anyway anymore.
Yeah, I know. I didn't like the new spelling either.
Some people pronounce it sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, I know they claimed the reason why they changed it was because sci-fi, the way they had it spelled, was the name of a genre, and it wasn't a good name for a channel. But still, I don't. I liked it better back when it was clear it was about science fiction.
Yeah, I mean, back at the time, it was science fiction, so the Sci-Fi Channel was that's a perfect name for a channel that plays sci-fi. Yeah, but they broke it up way too much. It was on for 2 months at a time. Both seasons were split in half, and then it was on for 2 months, and then off for 4 months, and then in between seasons was a 3 month break, which it was insane that you had to wait longer for the second half of the current season than you had to wait for the next season. You have 2 seasons broken up into 4 segments.
It was off more than it was on, basically. That, and I think that might have been what helped kill it a little bit too, is the fact that I mean you're watching it for 2 months, and then you have 4 months off. You have 4 months to forget about it, 4 months to find something else, 4 months to get distracted. That's a really long break in between seasons. I mean, that's an understandable break between. I mean, like halfway through a season. That's an understandable break between seasons, 4 months. But when you're in the middle of a season, I think 2 months should be like tops for that. I mean, it was not airing more than it was airing, and I think that was a big problem, and that was the mistake on CF's part.
Yeah, exactly. It was on for a total of 8 months, and it was off for a total of 11 months.
Yeah, and that had a big. That probably had a lot to do with it too. It wasn't on long enough for someone to get like hooked on it, I guess, or to become interested in it.
Or the people who were already disappointed at it being too dark or not enough humor, which I think there was a decent amount of humor. I mean, especially from Eli and I mean, especially in his position, being literally abducted out of his house, brought onto a spaceship in his pajamas, and now all
Yeah.
of a sudden he's math boy on a ship on the other side of the universe, and everybody's lives depend on his ability to come up with these equations on the fly.
Well, that too was also one thing they fit into the storyline that I thought was great was Rush's jealousy over Eli's potential and Eli's abilities, because he was supposed to be the one brought on to solve the ninth chevron, and not only did Eli end up doing what Rush couldn't, but even when they got to the ship, Eli could do things that Rush couldn't do. He was just instinctively so brilliant.
I like that also that it created a kind of awkwardness that this kid just solved something that you've been working on for years, and now all of a sudden he's like, I mean, but at the same time, Rush he did a pretty good job of handling that pretty well. I mean,
I
trying to
also,
keep him encouraged and
yeah,
keep him included.
I know. Also, I really relate to Eli a lot, and like his awkwardness. He kind of you never really saw him like fit in anywhere completely. I mean,
Right.
you saw the military people with their group, you saw some of the civilians with their group, and then you saw like Brody, Volker, and Rush. But Eli was sometimes with them. Then he was like dabbling, stuck in the friend zone with Chloe. He got along a little bit with Scott and later on Greer, but you never saw him devote himself really to one clique. He kind of was just in the center by himself, jumping around, being with whoever was around.
Yeah, he was kind of a category all on his own. I mean, he was, like you said, you had the military people, the civilians, the scientists.
He
He
was
was
a
in
kid,
all of those. He was a civilian who was brilliant, so he fit in with the scientist, and he was always working with Colonel Young.
even though he wasn't military. He always had a huge interest in going to the other planets with the military.
Yeah,
When they were getting up and they were going to explore the planets they did when they needed food or water or lime for the CO2 scrubbers.
and despite all of the crap that he had been thrown into, he managed to have a pretty good sense of humor about stuff, especially in
Definitely.
very tense situations. He always may make a reference to another sci-fi show or
That's
movie or something.
I was just about to bring that up. That's what I liked a lot about the first season is he did that every couple of episodes, but they kind of did away with that, and I found that humorous. Like when they're on the ice planet, it was making references to Hoth.
Yeah, the whole not enough aliens. I mean, I think they did a pretty good job with the aliens we saw. The blue aliens, which is was said that they were going to be called the Nakai. The producers intended to establish that as their name, but obviously they never got a chance to, which I think is really sad because the fact that they gave them a name means that they planned on doing more with them. We were going to get that exploration and stuff that we had gotten before in SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis, and we were going to see more of them, and we were going to get to know more of their background and whatever. I mean, they had a name, we just didn't get to know it yet.
And then we had the Ursini, who were I don't know. I know I like the way you put it. These old Asian-looking aliens,
Yeah,
and
they look like little wise men.
they look like they're about to sit you down for a cup of tea and talk to you in proverbs.
Yeah,
Uh, Basically, the story with them was they kind of like in these little stasis pod things on one of the cedar ships, which was going around planning stargates, and they were hiding out there. And then when the ship was reactivated, they tried contacting their people who were at a war with another race, and basically they were the only ones left. Their race had been destroyed. I think that's also interesting is that other race that doesn't have a name. They gave a name to the drones. They called them something drones, but what it was an advanced race created these drones to attack any technology that was not their own. And that race has presumably since then gone out of existence, but these drones remain just flying around space attacking other ships, and they cause huge problems for Destiny.
I really like the whole thing with the drones. I mean, the aliens, they added, something living, something that you could hurt, but the drones, it was like it's something about it just being a machine. It's something that was pre-programmed. You can't talk with it, reason with it. The whole idea that this isn't something that's ever going to get tired. It's programmed to go after you, and
Yeah.
that's all it knows. It's programmed to do one thing, and that's destroy you.
And then again, that also was another thing that was a lot like Battlestar Galactica with the Cylons.
Yeah,
I mean, it got to the point where they were just popping up every time like they came out of like FTL and stuff, blocking them from refueling. But I personally liked it though because it was like introducing a third alien race without having to come up with another physiology for another alien or something. It's just
yeah.
this is just left over from that third alien race. This is something they created and now
Like
it's
the
just out there
furlings.
attacking.
Like the furlings, they
Like,
needed to create another name, but you never got to see them, so they didn't have to create a appearance or anything.
yeah, the furlings. Actually, I heard not really related to this Stargate Universe, but I actually heard theories that a lot of people were hoping that they would one day go back to the giant aliens from the Skull episode, the Crystal Skull episode, and
Oh yeah,
reveal that those were somehow the furlings who put themselves away in another dimension after the Goa'uld took over or something. And I don't know. Even if that wasn't going to be the furlings, I think it was kind of sad they never went back to that.
yeah. I would like to see something with the furlings, but I would want them to look completely different than what you would expect. Not like
Yeah,
the little,
not furry at all.
like in
I,
episode 200, when you see the
yeah,
little
Ewoks.
koala-looking
Yeah.
Ewok things.
I was actually like I said earlier in this episode, I was kind of jotting down ideas for like a Stargate origin story where like something happens to like some Stargate team where they loop through a solar flare and get sent back to the very first Stargate before there's like they've even been seeded to this galaxy. It's the first one set up on the first planet,
Yeah.
and they meet the four great races: the Furlings, the Asgards before they had the genetic problems when they were like human size, the Nox, and everything. And I kind of wrote into that like this plan for the Furlings where they're kind of like this reptilian like species with like blue skin and like dragonfly like wings on the back, and so that's kind of how I wrote them. Just as I kind of tried to think the exact opposite of what you would think is kind of how I wrote them.
Yeah. Which I would like to see. I would like the people to be like, "That's the furling. That's not furry." Or
But that
so
really is
weird.
what comes to mind, a teddy bear, basically.
I love that in episode 200 though. How it says. I remember watching that one, and it starts off and it's all previously on Stargate SG-1, and then we are
And
the
that's
Furlings. And I was like, did I miss something?
yeah, I did the same thing. Like when I very first saw that episode, like I paused it because I was watching it on like a copy I had or something, and I paused it. And I went online and I'm like Furling episode. I typed it in Google, and I was like, because I made sure I didn't miss an episode, and then it didn't say anything, so I hit play, and like right after that, it was Sam or Jackson interrupting, going, "That never happened."
Yeah. I was watching them on Hulu. I think that was back when Hulu was completely free, and that's how I watched them all. It's sad because I actually didn't get into interested in Stargate at all really until I found out that SG-1 had just now been canceled,
Yeah,
like
I got in.
literally that month.
Yeah, I got into Stargate. What was it? When I was a kid, when I was like 7, we used to go up to my dad had a friend up in Maine with a cabin, and he had a bunch of VHS tapes up there, and that's where I first saw the Stargate movie. And my brother and I, we fell in love with the Stargate movie when we first saw it. This was around 1997, which was actually when SG-1 was first starting. But it wasn't until a couple years ago. It was the season that right before Jackson disappeared. So I think that was season 5. I think it was
Something
season
like
6.
that. Five
Yeah,
or
it was
six.
season 5 when I actually found out about the show Stargate. But at the time, I had it on. We didn't have cable at my house when I was like 13. We just had antenna TV, so we were watching like episodes from season 1 and 2. They were on like season 5, but we were watching like episodes of season 1 and 2. I watched it when I could, but I didn't actually like that. I started watching the show just because I loved the movie so much. I didn't really get into it till later on when I got my hands on some of the seasons.
Yeah, it was season 5 when he left, which was pretty sad.
Yeah, well, it was pretty sad. It was season 5.
Yeah, the
So season 6
the
was the one he wasn't there for, right?
death at the end of season 5. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Jonas Quinn replaced him in season 6.
Jonas Quinn was awesome. I kind of would have liked if they had kept him in a little bit more.
Yeah,
I,
I really liked him.
I really did like his character, and I secretly kind of did like the way he and Carter went together. I know everyone was like Carter and Jack, but I really liked Jonas Quinn and Carter. One of my favorite, probably my favorite episode of Stargate Universe was Twin Destinies.
Oh yeah, I'm
That
a big sucker for time travel episodes, so I love that one.
Yeah, so am I, and that one was so well done. Basically, they were the ship Destiny refuels by flying through stars, and they were gonna try to dial Earth while inside the star because they could absorb as much energy as they wanted to. But something went wrong. There was a solar flare, and the whole entire ship got sent back 12 hours into the past, I believe, or 17. Something was one of the two. I don't know why those two numbers jumped into my head. I think it was 12 hours. But everyone except Rush escaped through the Stargate before it jumped back 12 hours. Rush flies a shuttle, the shuttle from the Destiny 12 hours in the past to the Destiny that's now coming up to it because it already happened. So that was great. In one way, it gave Destiny its shuttle back, so now it has both shuttle docks with shuttles again. But also, it allowed them to basically fix Destiny. Destiny, they only had half of the stuff working. They only had half of the parts they needed. So now they're coming across their same ship from the future in the past, and they go over to the ship and they take the half of the parts that are working and bring them back to Destiny to try to make almost a complete working ship.
And on the plus side, Rush finally had someone to talk to.
Yeah, himself. Someone who could have a decent conversation with.
Yeah, as he put it.
And that's another thing, though, that they never really answer is, did Rush make the ship go in the past? Did he make all those people that they thought had originally died? Did he make that happen? Because the thing that makes me happen is Rush, and even Rush thought that the other Rush had done something. He goes up to him and he asks what really happened. Even he thinks that
He can't even
he
trust
had.
himself.
Yeah, he can't even trust himself. Even he thinks that he had done something to purposely make that happen, so that the mission would continue. Like he purposely made it so that they would go back in time.
Which I
It
don't
really
know,
makes.
because you see the gate dial, and then you see the wormhole just kind of start, like it does
Yeah,
when it's doing that thing where it's looping around. But what I thought was interesting was normally they loop back around on itself. So it seemed
yeah,
like I was a little confused at that part. I rewatched it not that long ago, and I kind of missed paying attention at that exact part because I mean, normally like in SG1 when that first happened, they showed up back at that original gate, just at a different time. So, I mean, there would have been a lot of complications if they did that. If they looped back on the same gate and we're now on the Destiny 2,000 years sooner, there would have been signs of that.
yeah. But what they ended up explaining that away with was when Destiny looped back on itself in that star and that solar flare, there was no Destiny there 2,000 years ago for it to loop back to.
Right.
So
Because
instead,
it's
it looped.
not because it's not based on a specific point in space like the other gates are, right?
Yeah, and instead it looped by to a nearby planet, which is why they ran into them a few episodes down, like their ancestors.
Yeah, which I thought was brilliant. I love that they go to this planet it's just to drop off and gather supplies, and they
They
discover
see
their
humans.
yeah that speak English,
Yeah,
which wasn't uncommon in SG1, and everybody spoke English, even the Wraith, and and
but in they said going into SGU there weren't going to be any human-looking aliens. So
which I love that when we first saw the blue aliens, Vendakai, I was I really loved the way they look. I mean, when you're that far out, I've seen threads where they're talking about the design and how just the two legs, two arms, that upright, that basic structure, how that's just kind of the if you're going to design a, a creature or even go off of evolution, that's probably like the smartest design. So that's probably going to occur very, very often. But I mean, just the where they look just like a human with a mask on or something like that. I was glad to not see any of that.
yeah, I definitely like the Nakai. I don't know about you, but I kind of just from looking at them, I don't know if it was their blue skin or more so the way their skin was and everything. It made me think aquatic. I don't.
Yeah, I definitely thought that they would be some kind of a watery thing, and especially with the tubes that they had them in when they had Chloe and Rush on their ship and they had them in those big tanks of water. It just seemed very appropriate. I mean, they just seemed very watery.
And I'm actually going to jump back for a minute to something we were talking about before is the aliens in SGU. And I mean, we only really saw two species in the drones, and it wasn't like aliens everywhere, which is a problem people had. But you got to remember, SG1 took place in the Milky Way galaxy that was populated by humans and the Gould. SGA took place in the Pegasus galaxy, which is again populated by humans and the Wraith. But we're traveling through the universe now. I mean, there aren't going to be alien creatures everywhere.
Right.
I mean, life is bound to be out there, but it's not going to be teeming. It's not going to be. They're not going to run into aliens every planet they go to. That is unrealistic.
Yeah, and the other thing with the alien, the very human-looking aliens that we saw in SG1 and SGA, I mean, a lot of them had been based off of, like, had some connection to humans. Like even the Wraith, they were what they had evolved from that bug. What was it? I can't remember the name of the bug. They had evolved from that would feed on them, and after so
Yeah,
long feeding on them and living off of their DNA, basically, it had after a period of time merged, and so even the Wraith, being not human, had been influenced by human, their evolution.
the Eratus bug.
That's it.
Yeah, but no, I always liked the storylines lines that they came up with for the aliens in SG1 and SGA, but I liked the whole step back from the whole human features they did in SGU. Like even in SG1, you came across I don't remember the name of the species, but there was that when Carter participated in that space race, and that there was that race that was delivering the humans to another colony. They were like humans and some alien species that lived together, but they looked just like humans.
Yeah.
I mean, they looked like they were humans with a mask on. I mean,
Yeah, I think that was something that was said before SGU started, that we weren't going to see that kind of alien. We weren't going to see just people with rubber masks. that was another thing that I really loved about SGU, and that they just completely they took everything that they've been doing for the past over 15 years worth of Stargate, and they just completely wiped it out and said, we're going to start over. We're going to make a new series, new everything, completely different than what we've been doing. And I think that's what we needed. But a lot of people, they couldn't adjust. They wanted what they had been seeing for the
That
past
Yeah, they wanted
20
that
years.
that 4-man team going into the gate and having an exploration every episode.
Well, yeah.
And that's another thing was all those previous shows, they were like each episode was its kind of standalone thing. This was a continuation. I think there were maybe, but there was Cloverfield in the second season. And I think there was like one episode, the time travel episode in the first season, and those were the only two episodes that could stand by themselves. Everything else was a continuation story about everything that was happening.
And even then, the episode Time, where that first one where they looped through and they, I mean, even then, it was a good standalone story, but it impacted everything else because they learned about certain bacteria that was in the water that they had
Yeah.
gathered from the ice, and they learned about certain things that helped out later on. And so even it was its own standalone episode, but it still had an impact on other things. And
And what was it later on? They that creature that was on that planet in time that like killed everybody.
yeah,
But then they had to go back because the cure to the bacteria that was in the water was in that creature. But then they later on they used that what was in that creature. They used it later on in the show as an anesthetic. They used it for like medicine. They used it for a
yeah,
bunch of different things.
yeah, like it's venom. I think they
Yeah,
were able to take its venom out and whatever. But so I mean, it still added to the rest of the storyline.
which is cool because it's like what is it? Scott's getting sick or something, and they think it's because of the planet, and then he gets bit by one of those creatures, and even though he's like hurt and dying because of the bite, his sickness is going away, his fever's getting better, and they don't know what's going on at first. It was all very well done. It was a good episode. I like almost all the time travel episodes. What did you think of the ending for Stargate Universe? The way they ended it.
I think it was horrible. I mean, they tried. They said we were going to get a movie to wrap everything up to kind of finalize it, and then that idea was scrapped. Even that they scrapped the idea for the movie before the show stopped airing. So they tried to come up with some kind of ending. They said we want to come up with some kind of conclusion, and but all they really did was leave it with a big ass cliffhanger.
And actually, I was let me pull it up just to double check, but I was reading up on that, and they didn't. They were actually not told that they weren't going to get that movie until like they were just about ready to film Gauntlet, which was the last episode. So they didn't even have time to like write another episode to replace it. So I was reading it, and apparently, originally it was supposed to be Young or Rush that stayed behind on the ship, and they were gonna flip a coin. It was supposed to end with them flipping the coin, but not showing who lost the flip.
Uh,
And they were gonna do that with it planning to be a season 3 and open up in the season 3. And I actually read it, and the season 3 is supposed to start with Rush sitting in like a thing controlling consoles and stuff and taking care of the ship. But then Rush wakes up from stasis and it shows up he was dreaming. It was actually Young who had stayed to take care of the ship. And basically all they did was they changed it to be Eli who stayed. And they changed him to saying like, oh, we don't know if we're gonna make it across the void, because originally the script they had it in that they were gonna make it across. They just it was gonna take a 3-year trip, and they had to change it to, oh, it's gonna take a 3-year trip, but we're gonna lose power at this point because we weren't able to recharge enough or something. And it was all just rushed because they didn't even have time. They were told they weren't going to get their movie to finish it up right after they already had Gauntlet written and were going to start filming. That's actually originally why they had the 3-year thing where it was going to be oh, you're going to be in stasis for 3 years, and then we're going to be in the other galaxy, and one of us will wake you up. And then they had to do away with that because there wasn't going to be a movie coming. They figured if they were going to do a movie, it was going to take a year and a half, 2 years, whatever, to do it. So
yeah. So it was going to be like in real time, like 3 years had actually passed for you, and then you finally get to see them waking up, which is really
yeah,
sad. I really would have liked to see more. There's a lot of fan writing for season 3. There's actually there's about 8 episodes that this one guy wrote. I'm going to put a link to it in the description and everything. It's I've actually read the first 3 episodes, and they're pretty good.
Yeah, I know you sent that to me a while ago. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. I've been planning to, but I would definitely. I really want to. Even if they, I don't know why they would not. Re, I don't know. I don't even know how to say what I want to say. I want to see Stargate come back, but at this point, I don't know how they could bring SGU back. Like I feel like that's just dead in the water now because they didn't allow SGU a proper ending. Like it makes it so hard to restart it up because restarting SGU at this point, I mean, Rush is off. The actor who did Rush is off doing his own thing. The actor who played Colonel Young has his own show now. They won't be able to come back for it. And
Right.
if they try restarting another series, which I would still like to see, it's going to leave a lot of unanswered questions about Destiny and about the crew from them, and if they're going to be mentioned, brought up, anything like that. Basically, SGU, because it wasn't allowed a proper ending, became almost what looks like is a franchise killer. I'm still hoping, a year from now it might be like, oh, we gave the rights to someone, we're going to let them start making a show again, but I don't know.
If they can have enough time to like contact all the actors and everything and be like, hey, you want to come back? And if they all agree to it, and the
Yeah.
ones that don't agree, they died in their pods. You know.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I did a little synopsis write up, not like a script, but a synopsis write up for the first episode of what could be a season 3, and that's exactly kind of what I had happened. Was some of them like they came out of the pods like sick. Like maybe if they can't come back for the show, they come back for one episode and they come out sick and dying. I had like Earth finding a one-way trip to them to send them supplies and stuff, and I wrote into it this neat idea I had, which sometimes I look back and I go, it's stupid, then I go, it's neat again, then I'm like, no, maybe it's stupid. And I had this idea that Eli was never able to fix the broken pod, but he found in the bridge like a panel of the wall that slides away, and there were actually stasis pods just for the crew members on the bridge, so that way when they were reawoken, they could go right to their stations.
Yeah.
But I had written to there that he found a separate stasis chamber just for the bridge members, and he took one of those pods, and he was automatically woken up when the gate was dialed with supplies sent from Earth. And
This fan writing, the first episode starts off with them coming out of their pods. Chloe comes out first, and then she goes into the room with the communication stones, and she uses them, and they were waiting for them on the other side for them to use the stones, and she uses them, and she sees General O'Neill, and he they're talking about like trying to figure, like he's asking her what's going on, whatever, because back when Earth had been attacked, the Lucian Alliance was like plotting things. Like they attacked the Earth like just before the crew on the Destiny comes out of stasis, and he shows her like news channels and whatever, and like all the major cities have been nuked and everything. And but then she goes back onto the ship and everything, and then it turns out that the stones aren't even working or something. Everybody else is starting to wake up, and but they drop out of FTL, they find a planet, they start going down to explore, and then they find an obelisk like from that other planet
yeah,
where and they find out that these are it's the same aliens, but now this time they have control of the ship so they can stay and explore and everything.
that's something I always wanted to hear more about. Was I totally forgot to mention them? Is that alien creatures with the obelisk
Yeah, I mean they basically what created an entire planet that wasn't in the Destiny's database.
and sun? The star wasn't in the database either.
Right, they dropped
Yeah,
out, and
it's basically a one planet solar system they created.
so the whole thing in this first episode of this fan writing is they now have the time to go in and explore this obelisk, and they find a way in, and when they get in there they find it's like this big like empty room, and there's a pod in the middle, and they get it open, and Eli is in the pod because there was no sign of him on the ship when they all come out of stasis. And
That's actually a really good. It makes you wonder how did he get in the pod, but what happened with the stones? If the stones weren't working, how did she go back and talk to O'Neill?
I
Or
can't
is that like
remember. I
in
think
her head or something?
I think it's a lot of it. It's giving a lot of credit to those unknown aliens that created the obelisk and the planet, because like in the script, like the end of the script for the first episode ends where it opens up and it's Eli, and so then the second script is so he was saying that he basically just gave up and he passed out, and then the next thing he knows he wakes up and he woke up in the pod just now. But he says that he thought he had woken up before because they showed him the universe. He's talking about how they showed him things, and they, like, basically he was saying that they just want to learn about us. And the Nakai, the blue aliens, they're actually at the obelisk, and they're inside already, I guess. And there's this whole firefight of them fighting them, and while crew from the Destiny is trying to get in and all this stuff, and the Nakai are fighting them, and then there was something where something happened, like the obelisk activates or something, and I think it like beams at, like, the beam shoots towards the Destiny, and all of a sudden everything is recharged and refueled and everything, and they're
It's like all 100%.
yeah, everything back to complete working order. Like, they have rows and rows of drones, like the drones, from Atlantis. They
Yeah.
have all of these, like, their armory is completely full, restocked, and everything, and it's like they just gave them all this stuff, and they're kind of like, how is this possible? And Eli's like, well, they can create they can create a solar system. That's
So
a good thing.
basically, it makes the ship like new, sort of like they did with the shuttle. They returned the shuttle to Destiny, and the shuttle was like in brand new condition.
Yeah.
And they basically did that to the whole ship. They
Yep.
made it like it just came out of the factory and was sent up.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually pretty neat.
Which I think would be cool. I mean, they give now Destiny is complete, full working order, and they have complete control of the ship now. They have all these threats. I think they really, like, it would, at that point, like, if they would have gone with this for season 3, I think it would have changed the way the show is. It would no longer have been about survival and trying to harvest what you can from the planets you find and trying to get by with what you have. And now it would be what you do after that. It would be, now we're powerful.
Yeah.
Time to explore.
One last thing I wanted to mention they brought up a little bit into season 2 was Rush unlocked the control room, which they didn't originally have access to, and didn't tell anybody, but he found reference to a structure or pattern in the background radiation of the Big Bang. And basically what it was the ancients had originally set out Destiny to find out about their destiny. They had found a ordered structure or pattern in the radiation of the Big Bang that was proof that an intelligent life preceded the events of the Big Bang. And it was sort of like, I always wanted to see where they were going with that, because kind of insinuated that there might have been a god or something, and this is sci-fi, and it was really, no one had any idea where they're going with it. They weren't able to explain it in the one episode they were allowed to finish the series. And I always kind of imagined this species that was able to create a star and a planet with the obelisk. I always imagined them somehow being tied to it or knowing about it, because I know it was mentioned either second to last episode that they were only a short journey away from where Destiny was headed. They were a couple of years away. The Destiny had almost reached that destination. So I always wanted to see where that was going.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to see more of that. A lot of the characters in the show too, thinking that was proof of God, and then there was a whole a dialogue between one of the characters who believed it was a god and Rush, who said that he's just saying that it's evidence of some kind of intelligence.
Yeah.
Would have liked to see where it was going. Kind of a weird theme for Stargate and for sci-fi, but I mean, it was a very major part of the story in Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
And that show did pretty well, I think.
But also, especially with, I thought it was cool because, like, with SG-1, you had the Goa'uld posing as false gods and the Ori posing as false gods, and then we come into SGU, and it's like, oh, we found this structure pattern in the center of the universe that could be proof of God, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So are we going to find out about a real god now? One that's not posing? It's like, I really want to know what they were actually, because they never announced that. Even after the show was canceled and it became clear that there wasn't going to be anything else on it, they never really announced where they were planning on going with that, what they were planning on doing. They just kind of let it die.
Kind of wondering if it was just a vague idea that they had and they thought maybe we'll figure it out later.
Something to go.
Yeah, something to just kind of get people interested. Like, ooh, like I mentioned in Battlestar Galactica, there was a lot of religion and a lot of politics in the beginning of Battlestar Galactica,
which made it really hard for me to watch.
Yeah, to me it made it very difficult the first season or first 2 seasons or whatever. But I felt like once it got through that part, it was a lot easier to watch.
One of the things about Battlestar that always bothered me was, like, I'm agnostic, but you have this these humans that are extremely, like, severely advanced. They have, like, hyperdrives and all these things. They even had hyperdrives in their little fighter ships. When that little blonde chick used it to go back to Caprica.
Yeah.
And yet they're religious to, like, a fanatical sense almost. And it's like blasphemy to, like, not follow the gods, not worship the gods, and it's really strange to see that in a sci-fi, especially one about a race of humans so far advancing in the future and with all this knowledge that goes against what we see here in religion on Earth. So obviously they don't really tell you much about their religion, at least not up to season 2, which is where I'm at. But their religion must say something different and have a lot more to do with the scope of the universe, whereas a lot of religions we see on Earth are about us being the only ones and stuff, because I don't see how they could stay that religious with the type of technology that they have. Do you want to move on to our hat tips of the week?
Yep.
My hat tip is gateworld.net. It's just a website with all the information you might possibly want on Stargate. I mean, unless you're going to go to the Stargate wiki page or whatever, I mean, this has everything you need. It also has a lot of other relevant information about sci-fi. I know I came across a show on it called Primeval New Worlds, which apparently came out not too long ago that I'm planning on checking out. So I recommend that website to anyone interested in sci-fi or Stargate. I forgot to put up my lower third, so I put it up now, but I forgot that earlier before I started talking.
My hat tip of the week goes to the Kino webisodes. Basically, little, just short little, maybe under 5-minute episodes, and it's just from the Kino's point of view. There's a lot of it like crew members like playing pranks on each other, or like, you know, messing with each other, or kind of a diary, or like it's like little things that happened in between episodes. They don't really tie in to the show, so you don't have to see them to understand anything in the show, but you definitely have to see the show to understand what's going on in the Kino webisodes. But I thought that it was definitely very entertaining, especially because there's a lot of humor in them. And
yeah, I know. I personally did not find out about the Kino webisodes until I got my copy of season 1 and 2 of Stargate Universe. Yeah, I got 8 webisodes with it. I haven't gotten a chance to watch them yet because I watched them on my PS3 using a media server. But and the media server doesn't transcode the webisodes for some reason, only the regular episodes. So I'm gonna have to watch those on my computer eventually. But I've been eager to watch those.
The link that I'm going to provide in the description is actually a link to a gateworld.net page. They actually have links to where you can watch each one. Some of them are on YouTube. Some of them are still on the MGM website.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you want to see us cover anything in our episodes, let us know, and we'll be sure to do that. And hit us up on Google+. We both use that heavily.
Yep. I think that's it for this week.
See you next week, guys.
See you later.